My name is Rodney Barbour, and I'm excited to be talking with you from the Verdin Organ Studios in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're in the midst of an exciting series where we're discovering 10 pistons that will enable you to have access to fine organ sounds and most of the organ literature that you would ever want to play for concert or worship service. Today we're on piston number 2, and this is what I call the solo piston. Many times we're asked to have a single note or a solo stop, and most of the time when someone says this, they're going to choose the oboe. So let's choose an oboe. This organ has one, and let's just listen. That's really a fine stop. I'm going to accompany that probably on this keyboard down here with maybe a quiet string stop. Or I could choose a flute stop. Let's listen to the accompaniment. It really doesn't matter what you accompany with as long as you have a logical decision. The flute is a lot different than the sound of the oboe, while the string has some of the same harmonics, so you might want to think about that so your listener can track with you on the solo and the accompaniment. Now, some other solo stops, what would you say? Maybe, how about, here's a bassoon. It's 16 foot, so I'm going to play it an octave higher. I could use a 4-foot flute for a solo stop. I could go to a different keyboard and use the trumpet for a solo stop. Bottom line, you could choose anything you want, but I'm going to go back to that oboe. Here it is, right here. I'm going to set my flute accompaniment down here. I'm going to choose a pedal stop, 16, and I'm going to play. Now, if I was playing classic organ literature or playing for the American Guild of Organists, that would be a really great sound. But I know on this organ I have all of these orchestral voices. So why don't I try an orchestral oboe and see what that sounds like? Wow, all of a sudden, again, here's my two words, dimension and depth. I can use the orchestral oboe to make it much more expressive than the organ oboe. And so if I'm playing some modern piece of music, or like the wedding song, or I'm playing something like music from Handel that's orchestral music, this could be a better choice. The keyboards on this organ are velocity sensitive. And what that means is if I touch like on a piano hard, or if I touch lightly, it's going to respond to my expressiveness. And believe it or not, there are 127 levels of expressiveness if my fingers were even that sensitive to access. And this becomes an artful expression of my soul when I'm playing. And that's the result of what we want in all music. So I have this oboe, but wow, I have now also in the accompaniment some strings. I'm going to look in this window right here where my extra voices are and realize I have 122 more sounds I could choose from, and some of those are solo sounds. So our English horn. Here's a bassoon. I can find in here a flute. So let's listen it. So I can go through here, find the sound I want, and change from my initial piston, which had the oboe and the stringed accompaniment on it, and select whatever sound I want. And I can do that right on the fly just by using these controls in this window on this organ. If I wanted to go to another memory bank, and many organs today have multiple memory banks, I could also set this up so all I had to do would be to touch general pistons. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with my piston number 2 and just make these changes here because it's so very, very easy to do. And this again gives me a multitude of sounds that I have accessible for myself. Remember my accompaniment. Even though I'm playing this melody here, and let's go back to our oboe. I can vary my accompaniment on the next phrase. I can have my cellos. I can even change the octave of my melody. So just because your printed music says play in a certain octave, you don't have to do that. I want to free you up from what your organ teacher told you so you can use your creativity and your imagination to make music which is inspirational not only to you, but to the people who are going to be listening in your worship service. Now, there's one other thing, because I have a 3 manual organ here. On this middle keyboard, I could choose other solo sounds and set those up, or I could do something totally different like this. So there's just a simple orchestral harp. So I'm going to finish my song. What I did was save one thing for the very last measure of the song so that the people are refreshed by hearing a new sound. Now, before we leave this piston, I want you to think about contrast with me for a minute. That's the entire way we're created. God made heaven and earth, land and sea, male and female, these opposites. We have night and day. We have times when we're full of energy. We have times when we're more relaxed. We have times when we work and times when we play. Music is the very same. We have things that are high and low, melody and harmony. We have things that are fast and slow. We have all of these contrasts and opposites. If you go to the symphony, you don't hear every instrument in the symphony orchestra playing everything for 15 minutes. If you do, that's pretty disgusting. In organ concerts, though, however, we often do hear that. 15 minutes of Bach played on one registration. I'm going to challenge you to think about these contrasts. Places in your music where you can breathe. Places where you could change from an oboe to a flute. Because in the symphony orchestra, if they repeat a melody, the second time the violins play it, they're going to play it an octave higher. They're going to have a glockenspiel play it on top. The woodwinds are going to play it. Something is going to be different. And I'm going to challenge you, if you have orchestral voices in your organ, to begin to think this way and use some of these to make the music expressive, make it full of contrast. And that way your listeners are going to relate to the natural form of their life. Your heart beats and releases. You breathe in and you breathe out. And without these contrasts, the music becomes, kind of boring, actually. The second thing I want to say about this is just be creative and be set free, okay? No matter what that book says for you to use, don't think that that is absolute law. You have creative freedom, especially in hymn arrangements and music that you're doing yourself, to use your creativity and your sounds. Okay, so piston number 1, just to remind you, was our string sounds. Which would be accompaniment sounds. It could be beautiful full sounds for a hymn. Piston number 2 that we're finishing right now is our solo sounds. All these different ones, all these different accompaniments. You've got already so much to work with. So this week I want you to practice with these and look forward to next week where we'll talk about piston number 3. If you have any questions, contact us at Verdin Organ Division. We'll be glad to talk to you.